Thank you so much for the sub. Thank you for the sub. Thank you so much for the sub.
She.
Welcome in everyone, welcome. What is 50? 50's nuts in your mouth. Welcome in. Killing myself. Welcome in everyone. Welcome. 50 what? 50's nuts. 50's nuts in your mouth. Welcome in everyone, welcome. Bye. Okay. Not gonna lie, I was not expecting my GIF in Discord to be the moment before you went live. Really? Alright. Today, I don't know how long I'm gonna stream today. Okay, disclaimer, I do have the sniffles. Okay. Because I got sick. And like, I don't know why, guys. My immune system is literally fighting me. Yes. I said thank you for the 7 months. Thank you. Welcome in. Welcome. welcome. Is that MP-chan? Sniffle my balls. Look at my title, huh? Look at my title. Just don't get sick. Oh my god, Kenny got me sick. I blame Kenny. Kenny was sick. Oh my god, I blame you, Kenny. Really want more sub? No. For a hype train, it's okay, guys. It's okay. You're welcome. So how was everyone's day? How was everyone's day? My day was good. I think I got like, I don't know, like 4 hours of sleep. Yeah. And here I am. I've been awake ever since. My eyes are a little bit dry, but I can't tell if that's because I'm sick or it's like I haven't got sleep.
Thank you so much for the sub.
Oh my god! Is that MP with the gifted sub? Oh my god! Kenny with the gifted sub?
Thank you so much for the sub.
Thank you so much for the sub! Thank you for the sub! Wow, you got one to the Nom and you got one to June? Oh my god! Oh my god, welcome in June! Welcome! Thank you for the hype train. Thank you. Okay, today I'm gonna play some Sekiro. We're gonna continue Sekiro. I really want to play The Walking Dead. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I was really debating if I should play Sekiro today or play The Walking Dead. Oh shit, you're right. The death counter. It was okay. That's good. At least it's not bad, you know. Okay, death counter. That's 55. We were left on 55. Alright. Alright. Second my boss. Thank you for the head pass. Thank you. And thank you for the hydrate. Oh my god, thank you for the hydrate. You guys are gonna curse me for this. I'm drinking Monster. Yo, is it okay, guys? Is it okay to drink Monster with like medicine? Like that's okay, right? That's fine, right? What flavor? Just the regular one, the green one. By the way, did you ever set up the death counter command? You know, Chaos, I totally forgot. I totally forgot. I'm already past halfway. Okay, buddy. You played this before. You played these games before. I have not. Okay. This is my first run through and my first time playing these type of games. It's not okay to drink Monster ever. It's it's so good. You know, it gives me the shingles. You know, and like drink some water. I do have water. I do have water. Like an unopened water bottle. I got Ultra Rosa. Oh, yummy! I haven't tried that one. Is it good? Okay, should I start? Oh my god, mouse. Start with the selected profile, yes. I'm looking to set it up.
Thank you so much for the sub. Thank you so much for the sub.
Thank you for the 3 gifted sub. Chaos? What the hell? Why? ¿Por qué? Oh my god. I'm looking to set it up and check him out for death. Oh my god. Jesus Christ. Why? The way you say water is like half American, half Australian. Yeah, water. I love water. 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 Yeah, it's W-A-D-A. Water. Why not? It's good? Oh, I see. I see. Maybe if I see it in the store, I'll probably grab it. Okay, what were we at? What was we doing? I don't remember. Damn, I never get gifted subs. Dodged. Aren't you sub ready? You have the you have the cap. The dunce cap. The dunce cap. The dunce cap. What's that pink hair redeem? Okay, I'm trying to fix it, okay? I just haven't got the time to fix it. Okay, it doesn't work. It was like the other redeems. So I have to like fix it so that the other redeems overlaps it, you know, and it doesn't get like stuck, you know? Yeah. I'm just lazy. Can I get some waiter? But I hardly even know her. I'm so sorry. Go to the dream world? Should I go to the dream world? I'm not done with this road, right? There's 3 ninja tools for you. Ah, the one that you were showing me last time. Okay. I will go there. Hirata Estate. Okay, it's been a week since I touched this game, so I'm a little rusty. Okay, guys, so don't hate. Okay, no hating. Okay. It's been a while since I held a controller. Okay, so you know, if I messed up, it's alright. I'm dead. Okay, hold on. Wait, that doesn't count, right? Does that count? Wait, I clicked the wrong button. Wait, that doesn't count, right? No. That counts? Hold on. What button was it to like grapple again? Was it? God. Jesus Christ. Fine. Okay. Where's my mouse? Mouse. 56. Okay, that was a you know, that was okay. That was a tutorial, okay? Okay, is there an easy way to get down? Warm up that? That was a warm up. How do I grapple again? Okay, it's not that, right? Okay. This. Smack. Okay. Left bumper, but when it prompts you? What is left bumper? Such remnants. Okay, we're gonna... Okay! Hold on. What? If you're on PlayStation, left bumper would be L1. Oh, L1. Okay. L1. See, okay. L1. Is it? Oh fuck. L2? Wait, you guys are telling me wrong things. L1 or L2? L2 is trigger. Okay, you know what? Is there an easier way to go down besides falling? Please. Can I slide down? Is that possible? Skyrim this? Wait, that's 58? Okay, that's just that I don't tell him. Oh, you're right! I totally forgot. Hold on. No, that's 57, right? Okay, earlier I just teleported back, right? You didn't show the death sign? Hold on, I need... Where's my options? Game... graphics? Okay, I need to do a window. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. We started at 55. Yeah, we did start at 55. This is 57. It's 57, okay? It was just a warm-up, okay? Warm-up death, okay? That's something you put the head past. Thank you. Travel? No, what do you mean no? No warm-up death? Get good? I am good. I'm a crack gamer. Okay, pick up item. Ceramic shard. Okay. How do I grab that? Ah, okay. L1. Ah! Okay, warm up battle, okay? What? Oh my god. Hold on. Warm up battle. Okay. It's been a week, guys! It's been a week, okay? I'm having to relearn the whole game again. It's been a week, alright? You know? Give me some time. Okay. How do I run again? That's his throw. Okay. Oh my god. What is 50? Also, hi, welcome in! Welcome! Light spans? Beans? Welcome! What is 50? 50's nuts in your mouth! Oh. Ah, okay. Oh. Okay, got it. Okay, you got me. Welcome in. How are you? Oh, okay. Can I? Oh my god! Oh. Hold on. I'm still alive. Hold on. Ah! Okay. This is a warm-up, okay, guys? This is a warm-up. Okay? It's just a warm up. Don't hit me. Okay. Okay. Fistful of ash. It's okay, I still got the resurrection, you know? And then I wanted to add oh my God. I didn't die yet, guys! I resurrect, okay? Pocky sand. Yes, I remember Ash's pocky sand. Okay. Hug the wall. Okay. Okay.
Pocket sand.
Okay. Okay. I think I got it. I think I got it. Okay. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna rest again. And redo this. I got it. Hold square. How do you do that, Mom? Did you just put a square letter in my chat? I was like, thank you for the like. Thank you. Okay. Rest. We're gonna go high ground. Grapple up there. Grapple. Okay. Gonna sneak over here. There's no enemies over here, right? Stealth? What is this? Yes, it's in my phone keyboard. Ah, I see. I thought you were throwing me like Korean symbols, Korean letters. And goes sugar. Okay. Oh, that's it? I can't go up here? There's nothing for me to grab up here? Wait, can I grab on the ledge? Is that ledge? No, right? Oh, I have to fight them. Okay. My hands are getting sweaty, guys. Not because I'm a sweaty gamer, okay? It's because I'm sick, okay? My body temperature is very high. Alright, you know? Can I still kill this guy? He's not gonna turn around, is he? Aww. Ah! Okay. Oh my god! Melee losers! Oh my god! Please don't kill me! Oh my god. You know, I'm not dead yet! I hate ranged characters! Come here! Just one of you guys, please. Come on! Come on! Ow! Ow! Whoa, what the hell? I'm trapped! I'm stuck. Wait. I'm not ready for that. Okay. It's okay. Warm up, guys. Warm up. Warm up. They are easy shit. Warm up. I haven't played this in a long time, okay? Warm up. What is that? Okay. It's a warm up, okay? It's a warm up. Leave me alone. You know what? Can I just like run through? Okay. Shh. Mimic is still stealth. There's no one left. Watch. See, easy. Easy. Okay. Is there another guy here? X2 open? Does not open from this side. Okay. When they load their bow, just run to the side. They don't shoot in front of you. They shoot where you are. Okay. Got it. Got it. Oh, turn around. Wait, do I have homeward auto ceramic shard? Can I throw a shard here? Oh fuck. Oh, wrong button. Oh, you're not gonna move over here? No? Come over here! Please. Come over here! Turn. Oh god, they see me. God. She gotta fight the big guy at the bridge later. The big guy at the bridge. Okay, you know what? Oh. Wrong, I was trying to heal myself. Okay. You know what? We're just gonna go for it. Come here! Come on! Can I not? Oh. You throwing stuff at me? Oh. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna kill this guy first. Uh-huh. Oh! What the hell? Don't hit me! Don't hit me! Ah! Ah! It's okay, I'm not dead yet. Am I dead? Am I actually dead? I thought stuck out one resurrect. It's okay, it was a warm-up, guys. It was a warm-up. It was a warm-up. Also, thank you for the redeem. Thank you. Welcome in, John. Welcome. Hey. My sweaty hands. Okay. Bring me back here. Where is he? Where did he go? He still saw me, right? No? Oh! It's okay. We're just gonna walk over here, you know? It's fine. It's okay. Oh yes, the burning fire was indeed a warm-up. Yeah, it was definitely a warm-up. Okay, good. They don't see me, no? If I go over here. Oh. Is he gonna go there? Please go there. No? Should I fight them? I low-key don't want to fight them. What is this? Pellets. You should? Okay. I go around? Oh! He saw me. Oh! 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 He got me! Oh! Okay. Oh. Okay, that was good. That was good. Okay, I'm getting the hang of it now. I'm getting the hang of it now. Should I get into the air assassinations? Like go on roof and kill one? Can I could try. I don't know how to do it though. They never gave me a tutorial. Okay. And that's if you have unlocked the one before it that costs 1. Yes, you can. I have to unlock it. Is it a skill that I have to unlock? Just get near the area on the roof, jump at and attack when the mark pops up. You just have to be above them, in which you can hit them. If you can't, I suggest using it on the heavy brute forward. Ah. Oh. Saw me. Ah! There's a ranger. Oh my god. Don't hit me! Yeah, I brought that trait! Oh. Okay. I can get scalped then. Oh, this guy right here. Oh, this dog! Ah! I'm sorry, dog! I'm sorry, dog! Ow! Ow! Get away from me! Okay. Oh! Uh-huh. Okay, good. Oh, welcome Nick Karai, welcome. What's 50 Shen? 50's nuts in your mouth. Not gonna lie, I can't believe people are falling for it. Damn, every single person. It's kind of funny. That's actually insane. Not every person, yeah, but like a majority of you guys. It's kind of funny. Oh. Give me loot! Give me loot! Is that it? Oh, there's a guy right there. Just chilling on the campfire. Can we sneak kill him? I knew better. What can I say? I'm gullible. I heard it the last time, but was 50. Oh, welcome in, young yo Jimbo. 50 is 50's nuts in your mouth. Haha. Oh my god, that guy saw me. Ah! No, guy, dog. I'm sorry. Try it, practice. Ooh, I got distracted. Oh shit, I could get hurt by fire. Okay, maybe balloon of wealth. Okay, balloon of wealth. Wait, Shen, you're at 58 now, aren't you? Oh, am I? Am I at 58? I did. I died last time, huh? 58. Okay. Okay. You know, hopefully I don't die more than 200 times. That's my goal. Hug wall. Is there anything else here? Oh. No! I'm gonna kill this guy. Oh shit, I missed! Okay. Get wrecked. Okay. Nice. Give me money. Oh shit. Okay. Oh my god. I saw up his armor. Whoops. Ceramic shard. Is that the only way I could go? Nothing else here? No? Oh. Okay. People are thinking, oh, is it 50 active subs? Maybe an upcoming 50-hour stream? Nope, just 50 subs. Yep. It's kind of funny. Oh yeah, I haven't done the death counter command yet. At the rate you're doing, I think you're gonna die more than 200 times. No, you gotta have some trust in me, you know? The shinobi axe. Oh, I'm so sorry guys, I'm coughing. The shinobi axe. From the temple. Oh, there's someone inside the house. Left? Go left first? Is right the main road? Is that why? Oh. We're building this temple next, boss? Yes? Okay. Lord Juzo. Aniki! Can I... Yeah, kill your friend! Yeah, come here. Come here! Oh, oh shit! Oh! Oh my god. The thing is weird how they wear armor but there's no undershirt. You know? Oh, another one? I didn't even see you! Where did you come from? Oh! That hit me! Oh! I'm so bad at parrying! It's okay, I'm good. Alright. He was in the house! Okay, I like coin purse. A purse filled with a small amount of sin can be used to acquire the sin inside. Has a somewhat satisfying weight to it. Okay. Is it? Nothing else? Anything? What about, can I go in here? Ooh. Shinobi axe! Oh, this is the one he was talking about! Can I equip this instead? Or is my katana still better? Shinobi axe. Inventory. Go to the left and open door. You need it? I need it. Do I really need it? Wait, equipment? How do I equip it, guys? The axe will come in handy later. This should not be. Oh, it's a tool! A tool! Okay, a tool. So I have to go to the Buddha guy, right? The sculptor. Okay. Should I do it right now then? Or should I search around first and then didn't I kill these guys? No? Yes, you should do it now. You can't see me, right? Go up. Okay, we gonna TP. Travel. Okay, Shina outskirts. Hello.
お前さん、面白いものを手に入れたな。
Yes.
それはからくり筒。
Mechanical barrel.
忍び義手の芯となる仕掛けよ。どれ？
Wait, what does it do? Is it just like an axe?
この仕掛けで何ができる？
Just an axe? Or is it like a swinging axe? That'd be kind of cool.
筒薬と組み合わせお前さんの忍び義手の牙をさらに研ぎ澄ますことができる。
筒薬とは何だ？
からくり筒と共に使
More of a slam? Ah.
あるいは炎症といったものじゃな。使えそうな筒薬を見つけたらもっと
I'm gonna open my window. My room is getting so heated. Okay, mechanical barrel fitted to Shinobi's prosthetic. Present. What do I do? Fit new prosthetic tool? Or upgrade? Fit new? Wait, where did I got this? Flame vent? Oh, required material? Flame barrel. Okay. It's one of the most useful tools. Every axe is a swinging axe if you're strong enough. That is true. Okay. Wait, I could upgrade it. Can I? I need to. What is that? 2 out of 3? 2 out of 5. Okay. Flame vent isn't bad either, but very situational. That's scrap metal. Oh, okay. Oh, he's wheezing. Oh, let me have to change this. Load the axe. How do I switch my tool? Oh, oops. You're not enough of a loot goblin to find him? I do love loot. I love loot. Carefully. Oh, wrong button. Let me rest first. Triangle to switch shinobi tool. Triangle. Ah. Ah. Okay. 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 I see it. Okay. Ah. That's kind of hard. You see why you need it? Okay. Back, here we go! Crawling gecko. Enemies that crawl to the ground such as lizards are vulnerable to death blows whenever you jump towards them. Okay, whenever I jump towards them. Then I go around. Wait, I didn't grab this. Session balloon. Leave me alone. Where do you find me? Oh! Dogs! Oh my god. Okay. Go here. Oh my god, I fell. Oh my god, I fell. Oh my god! Yeah, what are you gonna do? You gonna fight me? Oh my god, should I just kill them again? Please don't come here. Okay, there's a guy. Come here, Doge! Come here, Doge! Oh! Please! Oh my god! Please! Oh my god! Please don't get Team Tiger! Hold on! I was not ready for that! Hold on! I'm not ready! You know what? I was not ready for that. Wait. Okay. That was the panic in me taking over. Okay. Oh god. I was panicking. Okay. It's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Fight Obikatsu. Hey. Okay. I want to try skip all these people. You know. Should I? Or should I fight? I low-key kind of want to fight. Or over here. Oh, that guy always sees me every time. Okay. Where's the dodge? Dog. Okay, I need one of you guys to be isolated, please. I can't do like team fights. No, I'll fight this guy. Okay. Ah! I'm sorry, dog. I'm sorry. Ah! Ah! Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Ah! Leave me alone. Ah! Leave me alone. 1v1, please. 1v1. Oh shit. Ow! Okay. 1v1 me! You! Come here! Calm and steady. Calm and steady. No, calm. Run! Run, wolf, run! Ah, okay. Okay, you know, I was I was reporting animal abuse. Okay, if my name is Wolf and I killed a wolf, is it animal abuse? Okay, wouldn't it just be wolf v wolf? Oh, wolf versus wolf. Oh, where you come from, buddy? Okay. Okay. You put a fair argument. It's racism? How is it racist? Dousing powder. Okay, it's another dude here. Hey, come here. Come here, come here. Oh! You guys saw that? Alright. Wasn't there another guy here? No, I have not. Mickey? I have not. Come on, let me stop. Okay. Is there like a praying statue here? Or near here? That I can rest? Okay. GG, no Mickey? Mickey? You're so cooked. Am I cooked? Am I cooked? Okay. We already went there. We went here, right? Rooster. Okay, how close did they have to be to the edge for me to like assassinate them? Air assassinate. You need it for the mini boss, so you're gonna fight, and if you're unsure yet, you have the guy at the temple to learn and practice it. Ah, okay. And other boss in the game too. Just lock and jump? Just lock and jump? When you see red? Okay. We're gonna fail this. Ah! Okay. Yeah, you gonna call your friends? Okay, where's the other dude? Come here, other dude. Okay. Alright. Okay. Got it. You have 3 points already? Oh, it only costs 2? Enemies here? Can I still kill this booster? Oh my god! Okay. Oh! I hate the roasters. Do not mess with the chickens! That's a chicken house? Only chickens there? Is it actually? Why do I feel so threatened when I come here? Don't mess with the chickens? Am I not supposed to? Oh. But they attacked me though! Oh shit! Oh! It's like Zelda! It really is like Zelda. Ungo sugar. Okay. More loot. Love loot. Is it? No? Does it? No. Okay, should I proceed now? Kinda scared. Go back to the idol? Go right first? Go right. This right? Isn't this just gonna take me back here? Should I... Oh, unlock skills? Oh god, it's so far! It's so far! There's no other idol like closer here? You can run through the game without fighting again? Okay. Hey, did I grab this? Apples to sugar. Take me back up. Take me back up, please. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 let me pray! They can't hurt me, right? You get another one after the mini boss. Ah, okay. But it's quick to reset. Resetting. Okay, what was I doing? Unlock skills? Acquire skills. Whirlwind slash. This one? The counter? Acquire Shinobi martial art Mikiri counter. Enables one to counter enemies thrust attack by stomping down at an enemy's weapon, dealing a large amount of damage to posture. Okay. Get both? You have the points anyways? Okay. Both. Wait, is one of these better though? Run, slide, suppress presence. Okay. If you're unsure, you can practice. Always an option. Okay. I see. Wait, I have one more. Should I? Might as well use it all. Acquire Shinobi martial art mid-air deflection. Allow one to guard against or deflect enemy attack in mid-air. Huh. Gun and other projectiles. Weapons deal an additional. Oh my god. Damage to airborne targets. This technique can serve to prevent that damage. A shinobi is not shot down so easily. Okay. I kind of want to do this because I hate the ranged characters. Thank you for the hydrate. Thank you. Thank you for the head pass. No, let's do this one. Okay. Combat arts are special attack skill based on the strength of the fighting style they belong to. They must be equipped in the equipment menu to be used and can be learned through the skill menu or found in special historic text. Okay. Before equip combat art. Okay. Only one combat art can be equipped at a time. Okay. This one? Whirlwind slash? Go back into idle and do the reflection of strength. Reflection of strength. Reflection upon a previously defeated extraordinary foe to fight them once more within Wolf's memory. During reflection, Wolf's attack power is not tied to his strength in the real world, and any quick items and spirit emblem used in these battles are reverted to their original states upon returning to reality. Oh. Okay. No, improve attack power? This will make you fight the boss again? Okay. Round 1? Enhance attack power. This one? Gyobu? Yeah? Confront memory. Okay, remnant. The battle of memory of an extraordinary foe. Although distant recollection of such a memory provided substance for the wolf, Gyobu Oniwa once led a group of infamous bandits, but was defeated by Ishin, who was so captivated by his show of strength that he took him as an Ashina warrior. Oniwa would later go on to become Enichiro, Ashina's most trusted retainer. Wait, what does this do? Attack power has been enhanced. Oh, so you just enhanced my attack? Oh, my attack power is 2 now. 2. Okay. I see. I'm ready to fight now, right? I see. Go into menu. Now if you want to notice combat art, press both attack and deflect at the same time. Okay. Combat art. Uh-huh. Oh, this one? You have to equip first? How do I equip it? Okay. Passive. Oh, passive skill. Wait, isn't it? Didn't I equip it already? Oh wait, no, I didn't. I'm dumb. Okay. Yeah, good, right? This is good, right? There you go. Okay. Can I just sneak through? You see nothing! You see? You see nothing, you see nothing. Oh god! That didn't fight these guys all over again! Oh god! Ah! Can I restart? shortcut? Where's the shortcut? No, I didn't mean to cut. I didn't mean to talk to you. Okay. It's so Joe, right? Hey, you have to believe, okay? Believe. We're good, we're good. We're good, we're good. We're good. He kicked that! Oh god. Ow! Oh my god. This comeback arts. Okay, you know, you gotta give me a moment to process. Should I try it out first? Hold on, what's over here? Okay.
どうか動かないでください。傷に触ります。
This one doesn't know spirit emblem, but more powerful ones do. Okay. Can I? Are they friendly? Can I talk to them? You're the young master's shinobi.
肝心な時におらぬとんだ役立たずもしや
Thank you for the bribe.
を手引いたのではあるまいがさもなくばこの平田屋敷がこうもあっけなく落ちようものか
Okay. Timing.
そうに違い
Okay.
ねえ
Traitor?
いねえ
But I hardly even know her. Okay. This one more? Oh, this guy?
誰ですか？
誰ですか？
あなたは若様の
あなた。
忍び殿。族どもの
Honorable Shinobi.
すでに竹林坂上にいたり、お屋敷に火をかけて
Traitor.
若様の脱出も叶わなかったご様子。お願いです。忍び殿。若様をお救いください。
Rescue the young lord. Okay.
あなたに託します。
Antidote powder? A powerful antidote concocted by the Sunken Valley clan. Heal status abnormally poison. Okay. It heals poison. Okay.
どうか
Increase poison
お役立てを。
resistance.
承知
Wait, am I gonna get poisoned? Is that why she gave me that? Oh, kinda sussy. Kinda sussy. Is it? Nothing else? Maybe? It's too obvious. Too obvious. Okay. How do I get over there without dying? Let's see, let's see. Right here. Yeah, I think we just gotta fight them. That's if you don't get afflicted. You have to fight those on the bridge. Ask her for more? Can I ask her for more? Oh, she's not generous enough. You just don't die? This is where axe is handy, okay. Where axe is handy. I'm gonna wait for him to. Never mind, he saw me. I was gonna wait for him to come here first. No, don't call on them. Oh! Okay. Oh shit! Oh! Oh god! Okay, warm up. Okay, that was a warm up. What the hell, shields? Oh, is that why? Is that why? Oh, okay. Gotcha. Ah, I see. Okay. I see. Bridge. Okay. Now go look here. Here. That guy? Is that guy the boss? That scrawny man with the spear? Him? I'm gonna get my ass kicked by a scrawny man? Oh wait! There's 3 people here. Should I kill them first? Or can I just move past them? It's more than ass kicking? Baby, hello! Oh shit! Ah! Okay. Okay. I got it. I see. Oh, not 560 or 60. 60. Okay. Look up. Everybody knows gamers don't look up. Oh, I could literally just go over here. Am I dumb? Oh. Still taking the. Oh my god. Oh my god. Please jump up. Try to climb on the. You don't see me? Wait, I see an item right there. Can I grab that? No. Turn that away! Turn that away! You did not see me! Oh my god. Ah! Jump down! Oh my god! Oh yeah! Oh my god, run! Please! Run. I cannot deal with this right now! Please. No. Leave me alone. Yellow means they're gonna investigate. Yeah, I know. Okay. I figure, shouldn't look. They're gonna look the other way. Because, NPCs are not usually this smart. To grab over there. It's okay. It's good. We're good here. Okay. Ow! Yeah, this is good. This is good. This is good. Don't underestimate the AI of this game. Okay. I got this. I got this. Trust, trust. Wait, he's turning around. Wait. I can like stealth. Run! Run! Oh! Ah! Get up! Oh my god! Wait! How the fuck did I get up? Get up! Okay. It's over it! Wait, I'm good. Okay. I wanna get rid of those two other guys first. Oh, there's a guy right there too. Okay. You can hide in the flowers? That's what I was trying to do the first time, but they saw me. Oh well, it's okay. Don't shoot me! Oh my god! Penetrated me! Leave me alone! Ah! Leave me alone! No! He's chasing me! Leave me alone! Leave me alone! Okay, I'm safe here, right? Trust. I'm good here. Okay. Shinobi Hunter, Inshin, and Mason. Okay. Oh god. This is not fair. This is like 5v1. Where's the other guy? Is he over here, this side? Oh, I see him. Ow! 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 Holy! Okay. God. Okay, I see. I get it. 5v1 is a piece of cake, what do you mean? You know, everybody has different struggles, okay? Everybody has different struggles. 61. Okay, you can practice Mikuri with the undead guy. Okay. His whole playstyles. Okay. Oh. Forgot to edit this. Should I go back? Come to the first dirty spin. It's so easy. Okay, guys. Back then, you know, past Shen was a different Shen. What can I say? You know, past Shen was a different Shen. Yeah, game is easy if you spend enough hours in it. I see. This is my first Souls game, okay? So people, you know, don't, you know. You guys need to understand. Wait, he's over here, right? Hello.
そこもとか。それがしを使い、刀の修練を積むがいい。
Okay.
力ば参る。
That's my first and last Souls. Got 600 hours? Really? Oh my god. It's AC. A shinobi can perceive incoming thrust Thrust. Attacks and counter them by stepping on. Okay. Got it, got it. B? Oh, fuck. What's my B button? Oh. Ah! Please. What's the B button? What's the B button on PlayStation? Stop moving. Press O. Oh, is it O? Ah! Okay, okay, okay. Ah! Okay, okay, I see. Oh. Do I have to stay still? Every time? Like, no, not moving at all? Okay. I think I got it. Don't lose direction or game will count as a dodge and you get hit. Okay. I see, I see. I see, I see. Okay. You know what? I think I'm ready, guys. I think I'm ready. Thank you, Sensei. I'm dying. If it's a jab, you click O. If it's a sweep attack, you jump. Okay. A jab, O, sweep, jump. Okay. Now time to get your ass kicked again. I got it. I got it. All right. Anyways, how was everyone's day? It's too easy? Okay, buddy. Okay. Is it better if I just kill these people? I'm gonna fight them first. Oh, don't say anything! Oh my god. Okay. Give me money, give me money. Where's the other dude? Okay. You could just run through them and not have to use your heals before the boss. But the thing is, I'm not as good of a stealth player that I thought I was. I can stealth this guy, right? Okay, okay. Not bad, right? Not bad. I mean, it counts as stealth and no one's there to see it. I mean, you're right. No, I mean, just run straight through them, just spray and ignore them. Really? They won't notice me? Like, they won't? I always felt like they always notice me. Ow! I messed up. Run! It's cause them cheeks clapping. Do you even noticed, but they can only go so far from where they spawn. Oh. Oh. Okay. I thought they were gonna like chase me all the way. Okay, I'll do that next time. Okay, let me kill this. This guy's a real pain ass! Woo! Okay. Okay. Come here for me. Ow! Messed up. Let me go! Okay, you know, that's okay, that's okay. That's okay. That's okay, that's okay. That's A-okay, that's A-okay. Okay. I got it, I got it. I got it! It's the little guys that are annoying me! It's the little guys. It's the little guy. Okay. Real boss battle. Come here, come here. Come here! Oh! I messed up! I messed up! Wait, I messed up! I keep dodging! Muscle memory! Okay. Wait. Okay, I got it! I got it, guys! I got it! What is this? 62? 662. Okay. Okay. She got it, guys. Copium. I got it. Trust. Okay. Don't hit me, please. Don't hit me. Can this guy hit me? Like, where did it stop? At the bridge? Past the door? Don't call on them! Oh god. Ow! Ow! I can see! Hold on. Safety first. Okay. The guy's dead. Ow! I faced the wrong way. Get out! Please. Wait! Oh my god! Wait. Hold on. Those guys actually like chase me all the way from here. Hold on. Okay. I need to plan it out. Okay, he's right there. There's two small guys besides him. I'm gonna kill that guy first. Ow! Ow! Get out! Wait. Okay. Run! Run! Oh shit! Okay. You wanna fight me? Oh, he's so annoying! He's so annoying! Okay. You know, it's okay, it's a warm-up. It's a warm-up, guys. Okay, Copia Reserve have been lowered than... Okay. It was a talking about, you know? Yeah, I was just, you know, testing the waters. 63. Okay. Okay. Don't come here! Ignore me! Ignore me! Okay. No. 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 No, no. Kill this guy. Okay. Oh god! I hate you so much! Down! It was a tree, it was a tree! Okay. Okay, this that guy. That guy. Oh, you throwing stuff at me? Okay. That guy right there. That guy right there. Oh! Okay, yeah. Uh-huh. Oh. Okay. Uh-huh. Oh, fuck! Wrong button. Oh, okay. No, that's okay, that's okay. Ah! That hit me! Oh god, I keep pressing directions! Okay, you know what? That's okay. Okay. I got it. I got it. I got it. 64. Okay. Okay. Thank you for the hydrate, thank you. Let's dodge more deflect. Yeah, I realized that. Cause it's got that spear so long range. So long range. So now that you're actually playing this Geisha, are you enjoying it? God, I love it. I actually love it. I love being in pain. It's fun. Okay. I'm gonna move along. No, don't come here. Uh-huh. No, oh my god! Really? Please. No! Okay. I'm not ready to hear you yet, please. Okay. Oh! Run! I need you guys to be isolated, please. Ow! Where is he? Okay. hits was that? That was 3, right? 3 hits? 3 hits. Ow! Leave me alone! Okay, okay. 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 Leave me alone! Oh god! Where do you guys all come from? Please! Oh god. Okay. Okay. Welcome in, Graham. Welcome. Beep. Hi, Shinobi. Welcome in. How are you, Graham? Almost had it. Almost, right? Almost. Okay. Oh my god, my sweaty gamer hands. Oh my god, after only taking like 6 months or more of convincing you to play it, a year? Yeah, it actually been a year. Only there's one pellet? Only one? They don't like overstack each other? Like if I have to wait for one to be done noosing to noose the other one? Is that how it goes? Okay. No? No? Oh, okay. I got it, okay. What is this, 65? Actually, I feel like this guy is not as bad as the horseman. The horseman was literal bloody hell. Okay. No. Don't see me, right? Oh, what the hell? Run. Oh god, okay. You know what? You know what? I hate that arrow guy, okay. Run, please. Okay. Ah! Hit me in the air. Okay, buddy. Okay. Please don't get me. I'm scared. I hate you so much. Please. Okay. Please. Okay. Oh my god. Is there an item here? What's this? Pellet? Please, I don't want to fight you. Seriously. Where are you? And I lost stick. It's okay. It's okay. You can also hide in that flower and get a death blow on him and cut the fight in half. Really? Okay. You know what? We're gonna try that. Keep calm and button smash. You know, you're right. You're right. Calm and steady wins the game. I need to stop panicking. I feel like panicking is like it's ruining my gameplay. Okay. Calm and steady wins the game. Calm and steady wins the game. I am the total is me. The total wins the race. Okay. I'm a nobody. Oh, he saw me! Okay, you know what? It's fine! Oh god! You loser! You loser! I'm a coward! Leave me alone! Leave me alone! I'm a coward! Hold on. Okay. Calm and steady wins the game, Shen. Calm and steady wins the game. Can you counter-attack the spear guy? Can I? I don't know. Okay. Oh! Loser! Okay, what if I just like ignore the rest of them? Fight this guy instead. Okay. Okay, this is so annoying! This is so annoying! Okay. Okay, it's hard to focus on one. Okay. Okay. Calm and steady wins the game. Calm and steady. Calm and steady wins the game. This is the game, guys. This one. This is the warm-up boss. You know? Warm-up boss. Okay, what if I just the little slash, right? The slash. Easy, right? Oh fuck! No. No. Calm and steady wins the game. Calm and steady wins the game. I need to kill this guy first. Come here. Okay. Ow! Leave me alone. Truce. Okay. No truce? Rude. Jump up, please. Okay. see. Come here. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay, okay, okay. 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 You full of blame. Calm steady like she's not gonna be panicking in 1 minute. Okay. Calm and I'm steady, okay? Okay. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Leave me alone! Okay, restart, reset, reset. No! Don't hit me! What's that, 66? Okay. 6-6. Okay. I'm ready. I have my gamer posture on. I'm ready. No, ignore me. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Can I get a death blow from here? Where is he? Right there, right? Which way is he facing? How does he know? He's looking straight at me. Oh my god! Okay, okay. Okay, okay. You know what? Oh god! Ah! Fraction! That's so ass, that's so ass, that's so ass. Okay. If only I have a bow, I swear to god, if only I have a bow. Okay, 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 I think I got it! Guys, I think I got it, you know, I have a plan! I have a plan. I have a plan. I have a plan. I have a plan. Okay. I have a plan. Which was this? 67? Okay. Do you have the shurikens? I do. But everybody keeps telling me the axe is useful here. So that's why I have the axe. Should I switch it? Can I switch it mid-fight? Okay, hold on, we're gonna try again. One more time. One more time. Okay. And I hit here, right? I went over here. And then... Oh. They didn't see me at all. Would it like you fight right back? You're right. Should I? Okay, what if he faced the other way? The other way? I don't know. I want him to face the right. The right side. Oh my god. Thank you for the follow, Porticus. Welcome, welcome. How are you? Oh, am I saying your name right? Should I call you Ace? Do you have a name you like to go by? Welcome in. Okay. A One Piece fan? Oh, the Ace! Oh, I didn't even notice that. Oh god. Oh god. Ow! Leave me alone, leave me alone! Okay, yay! Heal, I gotta heal up. Oh shit, did I press it twice? Oh, it's fine. It's okay, it's okay. I missed out, but that's okay. That's okay. Ah! Run, Shen, run!
Oh no!
Run, Shen, run!
Oh no!
Oh my god! Raid! Thank you for the raid, Orange! Thank you! Welcome in, Raiders! How are you? How's your day? How's your stream? Right now I'm in a very intense boss fight.
Agent Nelson, no! I can't believe this happened.
Okay. Look me. Oh god! Die me! Oh my god! Die me! Oh my god, please! That's okay. That's okay. That's good. No, we go over here. We go over here. We go over here. Safe zone? Yes, yes. Oh! Come on, son! Let's go! Okay, see, I told you guys. What can I say? So yeah, that was a really long clip. Raid luck for the W. Thank you for the raid luck. Thank you. Stream is good. Play Repo for the first time, followed by going through ENA Dream Barbecue. Oh, fun, fun. Oh my god, Repo has been very fun. Will you play with mods? How goes the game? Have the shadow died twice yet? Oh, it has died many times. In fact, it has died 67 times. I was so thank you. It's going good though. Going good. Oh god, I need some water. There was mod, yes. Many much mods? Oh, what kind of mods? What kind of mod did she play with? I remember I was playing with Chaos last time. How many mods did we have, Chaos? There was so many mods. I don't even think I saw like all of them. Okay, we're gonna rest. Finally rest. Do I just keep going? I think I'm at like 70 with some mods on my list now. Okay, that's a lot. Oh. Wanna fight me? Wanna fight me? Ow! Okay. Noise. Give me money. Money. Hey, there are funny mods. Yeah, one of the mods that me and Chaos play with, there was Goku as one of the mobs. What was his line? I'm Goku or something. And like you can't kill him for some reason. So here. Dowsing powder. Medicine for treating burns. Heal the burns status abnormality. Hey, it's me, Goku. Yeah, that's what he says. Hey, it's me, Goku. You can kill him. It just takes a while. Yeah, he keeps TPing. Keeps teleporting. Okay, who's shooting me? Who is shooting me? Oh god. I died to 3 arrows. Okay. Definitely not that one. Or the Weeping Angel. Did we get the Weeping Angel? I don't think I saw it when we played last time, Chaos. When we got through 7 rounds. 7? That's actually a lot though, right? Because I don't... Okay, the last time I played Reaper, I don't think I ever got to round 7. Oh, there's a big guy here. It's a rare spawn? Ah. I see. Should I fight you? You wanna fight me? Come here. Ow! Oh shit! Oh. So heavy. Come here. Ow! Oh my god, I better not let you the arrow, so god. Oh my god. Oh god. You're annoying! Okay, okay. Did I grab everything here? Did, right? What's this? Fistful ash. Is the ash like, is it useful? 'Cause I always get it. Okay. Fire. Cutscene? No? Where do I go? Oh. Hello. Hello there.
お前か
Father?
不覚を取ったこのわしも置いたものだ手当てはよいこの傷ではもはや助からぬそれより狼よこれを
Wait. Hidden temple key. The key to the hidden temple in the Hirata estate given by the owl. Owl! Ah! Okay. The secret temple is located in the very back of the Hirata estate. 2. The bird. Oh, the bird. What the heck? The 2. The Lord is absolute. Defend him with your life. If he is taken, bring him back at any cost. Okay.
これはお屋敷
At any cost.
隠し仏殿の鍵よ巫女様はそこに
God, Daddy, I'm sorry.
この火の手じゃ正面からは入れぬ崖外からならばそうじゃ
Okay,
あちらから
go through
外
the
へ出て
cliffs on the
崖
side.
沿いに進み霊園から
Back entrance through the cemetery.
さすが
Goodbye, Father. You live a great life and treated me so
わ
well.
かりました
That sounds so sarcastic. You shall be missed.
はい
The iron
うちは絶対
iron code?
狼よ命を落としてお守りするのじゃ
Is he actually gonna die there? He doesn't look like he's, you know, dying.
父上
Okay, he's my father, but why is he like twice my size? Huh? Why am I not also that same size? Dashed. Okay. Am I gonna encounter something bad here? So I really need a heal. Oh. The guy right there. Is that the same guy? Yeah. You don't see me, no? You see nothing. Don't turn around. Anything here? Can I go in here? No? Nothing? Okay, stealth. What's over here? Nothing? Is there loot over here? No, no loot. No? Oh. Let's not go there. Go over here. That looks exactly like the guy I just killed. Like the mini boss. Can I eavesdrop?
屋敷は今頃火の海よ。ああ、抜け出してくるとしたら、この隠しホラー穴にちげえねえ。
Only choice to do is this cave.
お嬢様の言いつけだ。ネズミ一匹逃がすんじゃないと。
Okay.
わかってる。俺はもともと大っ嫌いなの。危なくなりゃ自分だけ逃げ出す。今日者がよ。
It's the only way out. Okay. It's over here. Oh god, you see me? No, I'm gonna die! No, I'm gonna die! I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die! Run, run, run. You didn't know? They don't know. Ah, they know! They saw! Okay. Ow! Oh, only one guy? Ow! Ow! Okay, okay. Maybe I should have done... Okay. I thought there was gonna be like a little resting statue closer. Okay. Which was this? 68? 68. Okay, now I know what to do, you know? I was just scouting the area, you know? Gotta go here. Oh, there's people here. Go up. Okay. They don't know, they don't know, they don't know. Wait, Shin, go into the water on the left. Over here? This? This water? This giant river that I see here? Yeah, keep going. Keep going. Like under the bridge or over here? Oh, I fell. Am I gonna drown? To the right? Over here? Is there a faster way for me to swim? Oh! Wait, what is that? Is that a giant koi? Oh, it's an enemy. Wait. Go up there. Contact medicine. Contact medicine. You can kill it. It's for something. Kill the fish. How do I kill the fish? No, go into the wall. Oh. Okay. Oh no, what's his foot? Okay. Wall jump. Oh! Okay. Now where am I? Over here. Where would I go now, Mom? Behind me? This? That guy's wearing purple. Ow! Wait! No, 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 no! Huh? Oh my god. Hold on. He moves us so fast. Oh god! My favorite ninja tool? Ah, okay. So if I beat him, I get a tool? Okay. Oh my god, I have to start all the way over here. I blame you, Mom. You made me die there. You made me die there. This death is on you. 69. Mom got that's number 69. So you can't attack the fish? You can't attack in the waters? Oh fuck. Whoops. Oopsie. Oh. Okay. All planned. I can attack in the water, so I can attack the fish. I get Shanna 69. Now no more dying for the rest of the game. I'll try. You know what? It's fine. I don't have to kill the fish. Okay, we go straight for this guy. Okay. Come here. Come here. Come here. Oh. Oh! Okay. Okay. You know, he moves so fast. He moves so fast. I need time to process. Okay. You get it? He's the same set of attacks? Okay. It's a pattern. So thank you for the hydrate. Thank you. I have water now. Water. That number 17. Gotta attack more. Don't let him recover. Oh, okay. Don't let him recover. Okay. No recovery. Got it. Oh. Okay. Calm, steady, calm and steady. Okay. Ow! Went the wrong way. Okay. See you. See you.
Bottle of water.
A bottle of water. A bottle of water. Oh, look these trees! This bamboo. Come here, come here. Oh, maybe I'm playing too defensive. Oh. 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 Oh, 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 leave me alone. Ah, leave me alone, leave me alone. Okay. Okay, okay, okay. See the meter below there? That's the pulse meter where it feels like you can death blow. Oh, okay. Oh my god. He's scary! Okay. 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 I'm playing too defensive here. Got it, got it. Unseen aid. Oh. Thank you for the blurb. Oh, 71. That's right, that's right. 71? No, 70s. Ha. Ha 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 ha. For both you and the enemy and how to... Okay. Got it, got it. Got it, mum. Got it, got it. Got it. You know, I just gotta shut my mouth. Right? Focus, calm and steady. Oh. Okay. Come here. Oh, that was another hit after that. Oh, I keep forgetting. No! Oh no! Oh, fudge. Let me heal, let me heal, let me heal, let me heal, let me recover! Okay, what the heck? Okay. After jumping over a super attack, A to kick counter. Unseen aid. Thank you for the flame. Snake! Chen? Yes, love. Yes. Hold block to recover your posture boy faster. Oh! Ah, okay. I see. See. Okay. I got it. Oh. Nobody saw that. Okay. Get used to holding block while in battle and quickly release and pressing it again to counter. Okay. Got it. Okay. Okay. Come on. Oh! Oh, wait! Oh, wait! God. Okay. I was not ready for that. Okay, hold on. He moves so fast. I'm a little scared. 73, okay. Okay. He dashes a lot, so just hold. Okay, just hold. I keep trying to like dash away instead of blocking. Can't help it, guys. I'm a coward. You gotta believe. Alright. Scared of what? Dying? But you already died 70. Okay. Yo, true. Okay. These trees are bothering me. Okay. Oh, the ninja guy that kicks a lot? Yeah, the ninja guy that kicks a lot. Come here. Oh! Did I even hurt him? Oh my god. I only hit him like once. Once. That's insane. Okay, that's insane. Oh my god. Okay. That's the most fun to me to fight. Same as the tower people. My favorite to fight was against Genichiro. Same play with lightning is fun. Okay. Well, he's certainly okay. You full of blurb. Okay. This is the one. Genichiro is Ishin. Ah, okay. Is it here like late game though? To fight? Oh. Okay. Buddy, come on. No, I got trapped! I got trapped between a bamboo. Okay. He can Mikiri counter his kick. Okay, okay. That's what I'm trying to do. Are you gonna play that every time I die? Wait, what number is it now? Is it 74? 74. This guy's more annoying than the other guy I was fighting. Okay, okay. He's way harder than the spirit guy? I can see that. I can see that. Okay. These bamboos are literally blocking my way. Okay. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Oh. Ah, they're blocking! Oh, fuck. Wrong button. I clicked the wrong button. You know what? That's okay. That's okay. Okay, hold on, guys. I'm gonna take a bathroom break. I'll be back. BRB. I gotta go pee. BRB. Okay, guys, I'm back. Okay. This is the game. This one. Okay. I will refresh the mind. I will refresh mine. Here I am. They can put the blame. Okay. What the heck is that? What chaos? What? Mario scream. What is he saying? Mamma mia? Mama! Mama! Okay. Oh. Okay. This is the one! This is the one! This is the one. This is the one. Come on. Oh. Oh! Oh, you a loser! Go back, go back! Go back, go back! Oh my god! What the hell? This might not be the one, but it's okay! I need distance, I need distance. Oh shit! Oh my god, okay. That was good, right? I should have got some hits in. You wanna hit the wildest blip I had? Yeah! Sure. God, and the reverb. Is it gonna be sussy? Is it gonna be a sussy blurb sound? Am I gonna get like banned?
Yeah, that's some tight ass monkey pussy. Give me that monkey pussy.
What the hell?
Cock. Hold on, baby. Hold on to this monkey cock.
What is this chaos? Wait, what the heck did you just say? Whoops. Very sussy. What in the bestiality chaos? How did you even find that? Okay. Oh! Oh! You hit me. Oh my god. Oh god! Okay. Carefully. Ow! I wasn't looking at him. Oh! Oh! Why is this guy so hard to kill? So hard. I was watching someone that was playing a game where they became a monkey. They searched for a monkey blip and found... What the heck? That's crazy. That is crazy. Okay, which one's this? Oh, no. Please don't hit me, please don't hit me. Okay. Okay. I just gotta focus, right? Focus. Okay, I'm zipping my mouth. Zip. No more commentary, okay? Oh. Oh god. Now I can't jump up? If you can't beat this guy, you won't beat the final boss in the dream world? That's what I believe? Okay, okay, watch! I will beat this guy, I will. Oh. Okay, what the heck? Oh god. Ow! Okay. Thank you for the vibe. Okay. Lucky number 7. Lucky number 7. Okay. Lucky number 7. Lucky number 7. Okay. Thank you for the head pass. Thank you for the hydrate. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Okay, buddy. Okay. I took it away from the Uwu cover. Oh god. You know, you could also redeem you know, the scam, you know? It's very worth it, you know? Oh, it didn't work? What the hell? Okay. That's okay. I need some distance here. Oh, whoops. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Okay. Okay, okay. I didn't have a chance there. That's a-okay. That's a-okay. That's okay. That's fine, Shannon. You're good. You're okay, Shan. You're good. You're totally fine. You know, you got this. You know, don't worry about it. It's okay. But I don't want to be scammed out of my points. It's not a scam. Trust. I mean, it is a scam. Trust me. Yeah. It'll be worth it. Yeah. So if you do, what is it? Redeem it, you get a special badge on my Discord. Okay.
Whoa, 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 whoa,
Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, messed up. I need heal. Leave me alone! Oh my god.
Roadhouse. Roadhouse.
Oh, okay. Oh. Oh my god. Oh god! Wait, why is my... Hold on. Okay. Thank you for the play. Next time you die, click on the idol for me. Click on the idol. Look at the idol.
Dun, 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 dun.
Da 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 da
Dun,
da.
dun, dun, dun.
Da 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 da.
Dun, 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 la, 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 la,
Da
la.
da da da. Okay, okay. 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 It's just a long range, right? Throw my shuriken at him. Did you fight the other boss after the ogre? Not the horse, but the samurai? I don't know. I don't think I did. Go fight him? Should I? Right now? Should I fight him right now? Up your stance? Up my stance? Yes? Then we have to go back! Hold on, let me fight this guy one more time. I think she skipped the samurai because he kicked the ass. He kicked my ass? He kicked my ass? Oh god. Yes, a few times. Did I? The samurai guy? The samurai guy. I don't remember the samurai guy. No, I don't. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't think I fought him or encountered him. I remember the snake. That's what I remember. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm stuck. Oh! Oh! Okay. If you use the axe on it, he'll most likely deflect it? Really? Oh my god. Let me heal, brother! Back. Ah, what? Okay. He was the opening right after the chain. Oh! And you can't complain because there was a bunch of other guys around. Right, the guy by the gate. That guy. Oh, not by the gate, but past the little bridge thingy. That guy? Oh, wait, I didn't fight him. I thought I did, no? Did I not? Did I just walk past him? You fought him but lost. When you fought the horse guy. Continue. Continue. Should I go back there? Huh, I low-key want to fight this guy again. Stubborn. I'm stubborn. Okay, where is it? Here? Outskirts? Wait, where is it? Wait. This is where the snake was, right? The snake. Okay, the ogre. Ashina's gate. Wait, is this Oshina's gate? Travel. Gate. Wait, this one? Do the one after that so you can appear behind the mobs. Right, the underbridge? My god, I'm so sweaty, guys. Not because I'm a sweaty gamer, okay? I'm just running a fever. Okay. The guy here? This guy? Oh. Am I going the right way? Oh, this guy from this little pit. Yeah? Okay. I thought I'd be here, did I not? I just ran away. Gun people, the samurai who uses swords. Oh my god! Ah, remember? Okay, I remember. I remember this too well, too well. Oh god! Hold on. Your ringing is driving me nuts. Actually. Oh, let me just hit you. He blocked that too. Oh. Wait, is he right there? Okay. Don't die! You break posture and kill anyways? Okay. Got it. Can I sneak him? I could, right? Okay. Where's he gonna go? Is he gonna go up? No! Oh my god! That was loud. That was loud, Wolf. That was loud. No, don't go up here. Don't go down. Don't go down. Oh my god. Okay. Okay. Oh. Oh! Okay. 79! 79. Kill the guy on the top. Oh, the little gremlin that's like ringing. What does he do anyways? He's just ringing it? Just to annoy me? Or does he like give boost? Oh, it will alert? Okay. Oh, you loser! You loser! Who's the other guy? Okay. They gonna come here? Is it? Oh, why am I so loud? You know what? We're just gonna go in. Don't shoot me! He doesn't see me, right? No. No, turn around. Walk the other way. Okay. Yeah, who got the upper hand? Easy. Okay, Preppy. Alright, alright. Let me suck the money out of you guys. Now go pray. Dear God, Alright, alright. Hold down. Alright. 4 prayer beads. They go fight the guy that... Okay. Fight him again. I have 4 prayer beads. Wait, what does my prayer beads do? What did they do? Again. I forgot. There's so many, like... things I gotta learn. Health and posture. Ah! Increase. Ah! Okay. Posture and stance. Okay, okay. Alright. Okay, this is the one. Right? Posture and health? The fuck I mean posture and stance? Posture and health. Okay. So when you get 4 of them, go to an idol and lose them? Lose? No! Oh! Go to the idol and lose them. Okay. How do I get back?
Are you sure about that?
Are you sure about that? Here? Can I get over there? Make a run for it! I'm a nobody, I'm a nobody! Don't come here. do I lose them? Should I trip? Rest. I'm resting. I'm resting. I could feel the panic with you guys, especially your mom. Attributes. Okay. So is it 4 each? It's always 4. Okay. Should I save again in case? Rest. Always 4, yes? Okay. I see. I see. Thank you for the blurb. Okay. Oh fuck. Wall jump. Okay, wish me luck. Wish me luck, guys. This is the one, right? Oh my god, oops. That's insane. That's actually insane. That's insane. Oh my god. I can't forget it, that's it. I'm not. Oh my god, whoops. That was my bad. that was a misinput. Misinput. Okay. Okay. Manage your posture, boy. Okay. I gotta look at it. Go. Okay. Okay.
Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his power
What's my
level?
posture?
It's over 9,000!
9,000! Oh my god, it reminds me I was watching like old Dragon Ball Z clips. Not earlier, like the other day. Of like Vegeta and Trunks. So funny. Okay. This is the one. Me. Oh! Oh fuck. Okay. Okay. Okay, that was bad. Woo! Promotion. Rush. Oh god. Ah! on the brink. Oh, he fell. Literally on the brink. Oh my god. Literally. Now go to
On
the
the next
building.
episode of Dragon Ball Z, we find out how big that motherfucking cock really is.
What the heck is that? What the heck is that blurb? Miss Raven's feather. A bundle of Miss Raven's feather can be fitted to the Shinobi prosthetic to create prosthetic tool. And a Uzi. How do I say that? Forest affair to the north of the Ashina live many mysterious bird of prey.
Nice.
The Miss Raven is the only one to have eluded capture by all who have tried to. You somehow manage it. You'll find it gone. Only feathers in your grabs. Okay. Okay. Lamau, you get dodged. Yep. Okay. Wait, what does the feather do though? Should I do it right now? Is there a statue here? Why did I have to go all the way back? Statue? No? Okay. So if you're gonna get hit by an unblockable, you can use it to dodge that way? Oh, okay. If you want. You see what I mean? In the practice area, jump in the water. Jump in the water? Am I gonna die? Oh shit! Oh, don't kill me, fish! Don't kill me! Okay. Wait! Oh my god, my health is literally 1! That fish is special and won't attack you? Okay. Okay. I see. No! Leave me alone. It will actually run from you. Ah! Okay, I see. Let's go. Travel. Okay. You know, this is a great spot to end, right, guys? This is a great spot to end, right? 3 hours? Pretty good. Wait to see what it does first. Okay, let me do that first. Talk. Oh, he's coughing. He's just like me for real. The kid for the head pass. You can use our normal attacks. Ah. Talk to Emma? About the rest? Emma? Oh, I have to talk to her? Emma, my love.
お主と
はい。
お主と九郎様の幻を見た。
幻。
ああ、九郎様は
Lord
今
Kuro.
どこにいる？
アシナの城。その天守近くで囚われとなっておいでです。ですが、城の門は閉じられています。
そうか。
Okay. Is that it?
狼殿、よく参られました。
Do I have one? No.
白いあざは生まれつき
So
で
it's
は
not
ない
birthmark?
ならば、留飲を受けあるいは、
That's it. You want me to talk again?
また
No? You're not there yet? Is it new? This one? Mist Raven.
その忍び義手、随分と腕に馴染んできたようじゃな。
Does it quit the flame vent too?
これをと
Can I? I thought I was missing like
お前それ
one more
よ
or
くわ
something.
からん。
Oh. Okay. Dum dum. Okay. Which one's better? Better to have. Flame vent. Possibility to make from the loaded flame barrel. Wait, is this range? This is range, right? The flame one is range. Wouldn't this be better than the shuriken? Hold on, I wanna look. Oh, it's not? It's not range? Okay, never mind then. Never mind. Lol. Can we fight?
そこもとそれが
Can I just like do regular attacks? It just helps burn people? Oh, okay. Wait, what does this do though? Can you attack me? Is this you? Free training? How do I do free training? Okay. Can I cancel this? Can I cancel this? Okay. How do I do free training? I only see these four Oh, do I just smack him?
そこもとの技の試しいくらでも受けよう
I feel bad, he's a dummy. Defending? Defending, okay.
そこもとそれが
Deflection?
力ば参る
Okay. Oh, wait, that's pretty cool. Oh, can I still attack me first? Okay. Ah, okay, okay. Oh. Oh. Oh, wait! Oh. Wait, how do I switch it? Does it work with animals? I wanna... Ah, okay. I think I got it. If you don't move, you jump up, you move. When activated, it moves you in that direction. Ah, okay. Try holding it, then move when he attacks. Oh. Oh my god, ouch. Come here. Oh, wait. It's red now. It uses spirit emblem. Okay. Is that why? Okay. Oh, Shinobi Tonos. Oh, that's it. I didn't realize. Okay, I thought it was only. I didn't think the X one was using it. Come on. Okay. Some skill new spirit emblem. Oh, okay. Okay, got it. One more. Oh, I see, I see. I see.
そこもとの技の試しいくらでも受け
Yes, Sensei. See, Sensei. I got you. Okay, we're gonna rest. Alright, guys. This is a good spot to end. Alright, short stream today because I don't feel well. Okay, but I do plan on playing Sekiro on either Tuesday, probably Tuesday. It's only been 3 hours? Okay, I am very sick right now, sir. Right after stream, I'm gonna go chug half a bottle of cough medicine. Don't actually do that, but you know, I'm exaggerating. Fuck! Anyways, it's great watching you learn. Yeah, this was a warm-up. You know? What is that? Alright, guys. What the heck happened to my model? Are you dead? Are you dead? Wake up! You broke my model, guys. You guys broke it. Anyways, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. Thank you for all the follows and all the raids. Thank you for the raid, Orange. I hope you guys have a good night, good day, good evening. You get the hang of it? Yes, I will. This is still like the beginning of the game, you know? Still the beginning. And the hype train, yeah. Thank you for the hype train. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the gifted sub. Thank you for the blurbs, for the bits. I hope you have a good night, good day, good evening. Next stream will probably be Tuesday. Probably Tuesday. Most likely. I might stream Monday. I don't know. We'll see. You're between 25%, 33 right now. I see. Okay. Goodbye, everyone. But make sure you lock your doors, lock your windows, lock your closet, because I'm gonna learn. Bye-bye, Pog. See you later, alligator. In the what? Oh, he took off my coat and leave?